Good evening, friends and family, and thank you for coming to another night with Prepare, Restore, and Grow Black Communities podcast, Behind Black Business. And we have another wonderful guest that I had an opportunity to meet at one of our festivals, Damon Lamar Reed. And Damon is an artist in our community. And I'm so happy that I was able to catch him and he was able to give us some time to be on our show tonight. So thank you very much, Damon.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having
Absolutely.
me.
All right. And so, as you know, friends, we tell you every week we're a nonprofit organization and we're just a few people that have come together to do what we can to make a difference. We have a lot of things that we can complain about today. We have a lot of work that has to be done. And I think everyone should just, instead of feeling overwhelmed, just look at what is it that I can do, however small or large it is. Everybody needs to do their part. And so we are working to enhance the awareness and support of our Black owned businesses here in Chicago. And I was talking to Damon while we were off the air and expressing to him how, for me, supporting a Black business is a no brainer because that's the type of environment that I grew up in. And I don't know your age, Damon, and I don't know if that was your experience coming up, but for me, um, that's what we had. We had Black businesses and we had Black people, servicing us.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah. So that's why we do this. We have a lot of Black businesses here in Chicago. We have a lot of wonderful Black businesses here in Chicago, and they need our support. They need our support. They need our dollars. They need our criticism, along with our love that we can offer them as well. So that's why we're doing this. And so every week we bring to you a Black business that is here in the Chicago area. And we also are great supporters of our bookstores. And Damon and I was just talking about our bookstore of the month, which is The Book Joint, located at 6900 South Stony Island. And they have a brick and mortar there. They're having a little brunch or a snack bar. They have some wonderful artwork in their establishment, sweatshirts, t-shirts, soaps, and a lot of wonderful books. And so we ask that you please support the book joint. Verlene works very hard with the children in the community. She has a book club, and so they're just really working hard. And I was telling Demond, and he wasn't aware that we once had 22 Black bookstores here in Chicago. And that means people were doing a lot of reading.
Mhm.
And I believe people still are reading. We just don't have that number, but we do have a resurgence and we do have a number of Black bookstores. And we do feature a Black bookstore in our community on our website every month. And we go a little step further and we feature a book of the month. And for this month, it is Back of the Hiring Line. Okay. And this is a 200-year history of immigration surges, employer bias, and depression of Black wealth. And so there is a history in this country around immigration that has impacted the Black community. And this is a must read. It's by Roy Beck. And all you have to do is go to rrgbc.org and subscribe. And as a subscriber, if you win, then we will pay for the book and we will pay to have the book shipped to you free of charge. That's how important we feel imparting this information. And if you go on our website, you will see that we have given away some wonderful books. And I hope you are reading them. All we ask is that you read them and that you take that information and pass it on and share it. Share that knowledge, share that information with someone else. So please subscribe to rrgbc.org and you can become a winner of Back of the Hiring Line by Roy Beck.
I need
Okay.
to make sure I'm subscribed.
All right. Absolutely. And then there is our wonderful banking institution here in the Chicago area, the Southside Community Federal Credit Union at 55th and Wentworth. Everybody should have an account there. They have been in our community for over 20 years. They have been servicing people with loans and financial support. Some people who you can't go into some of these regular banks that are in our community that most of us have deposits in, and they're just making all of this money off of us, and they don't give back like they should. But Southside Community Federal Credit Union is there's a very small institution, but they're a big institution. And they have some wonderful new products. You don't have to go to some of these payday loans and pay all of this high interest with these payday loan rates, because Southside Community Federal Credit Union has some products for you, and they will sit down and they're interested in you. They care about you. And so they're going to sit down and talk to you about your finances and how you can best manage them and not have to lose money like this. I think going to some of those places is worse than going to the boat and gambling, because you're giving so much money away because the interest is so high. So the Southside Community Federal Credit Union, 55th and Wentworth, open up an account. That's how they create dollars, when we open up accounts. So just go there and open up an account and give them some support, because they are well worth it. They are supporting the community. And I want to go back to the books. We do have a public policy petition on the table. We ask you to go to Save Black Bookstores at change.org and sign our petition, because we want to get contracts for our Black bookstores within our public schools and our public libraries. And that is not something that is unheard of. That happens in a lot of other communities and municipalities. So please go and sign that petition. All right. So let's get to our guest tonight, Damon. Damon, you are an artist, and artists are very important people in our community. Art is very important in our community. And I don't think we realize just how important it is. We put a lot of emphasis on math, we put a lot of emphasis on reading, but art and music are equally important because of the impact that they can have on our abilities and the human mind, the human brain, our creativity. So it's really important. And so, Damon, I would like to give you an opportunity to tell us about who you are and the works that you are doing.
Yeah, so my name is Damon Lamar Reed. I actually first moved to Chicago to attend the school at the Art Institute of Chicago in the 90s, back in the 90s. So
Okay.
I graduated from I'm originally from Arizona, from Phoenix.
Okay.
And I moved around a lot as a child. I think that's one thing that kind of helped. I think that helped with like my art and creativity, just those experiences. So I lived in Texas, England, Alabama, then Arizona, and then moving to Chicago. After I graduated from the Art Institute, it was first my goal to be a children's book illustrator. And then my last semester in school, I had a class called History of Mural Painting, and I met artist Bernard Williams, and he was showing us his murals, and I was asking him like, hey, how much you get paid for that, and you know, and he was giving me prices. Oh, I got this many thousand. And I'm like,
Whoa.
yeah, but I always like to paint large anyway, and
Hmm.
I had never thought that that was like a career path. So a couple months later, I was assisting him. I also started doing some teaching art programs. Like I worked with After School Matters for a while, and I started with doing murals with Chicago Public Art Group. So yeah, I say I kept doing that. Then murals started being like the main thing I did. I really enjoy doing murals because to me, a mural is just fine art in the public. Uh,
Hmm.
One of my taglines is I bring the neighborhood to the gallery and the gallery to the neighborhood. And then,
Absolutely. The I I love murals. And I'm always in awe, especially on some of the buildings that they're able to put these murals on. I'm like, how did they get
yeah,
up there? I've been to New York, and I see they put murals on some of the trains. Um, but as you're saying, murals can transform a community, and it can take a community that doesn't look like it has something going on to bringing out what's inside of the people there.
yeah,
And there
yeah,
again, it looks appealing. It looks beautiful and
yeah.
attractive.
Yeah, and personally, I always say that it's my number one goal is to create beauty. I mean, and I always like to have a message in my art. I like to, uplift people. But
Mhm.
if it's not something that you want to look at, it's kind of like, being a real healthy person. Like, you want to give somebody the vegetables and you don't season them first. It's like you got to make the stuff good. You know,
Mhm.
you got to make it attractive to people. So yeah, I like to create beauty, but even more importantly, I like to uplift people. And and it's the same with to me, my studio art and my mural art. They're like one and the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like, I know with the murals, you said you got involved with the murals, and it was pretty lucrative. So, I mean, who pays for these murals? Are there the people that own the buildings, or organizations, or local politicians? Who pays for these murals to be put up on these buildings?
Yeah, now, and I'm gonna say, if at first, no, it wasn't that lucrative.
Okay.
Yeah, it was some some soup eating nights, at first, but but nah, the majority of times it's either like some organizations get grants, and then they'll end up hiring artists to do a mural, or maybe to work with youth to do a mural. Then you also have like the city itself, contracts artists to do projects.
Mhm.
And then you have like individual, business, like small businesses. When I first started, and one of my first murals I did, that was, just kind of me going out doing a mural. Actually, one
Mhm.
of my first was, I had on like my paint clothes, and this
Uh-huh.
guy asked me, he was like, oh, you an artist? I'm like, yeah, I was actually at an art gallery, and he was like, yeah, I'm looking to do a mural. And I'm like, hey, I do that. I had my portfolio on me. Um, I got that job. Another job that I got when I was kind of fresh out of college was literally like the corner store across the street from my house. Because
Okay.
I went over there and I was like, hey, y'all need a new sign. It's looking, bad. It's all about like trying to solve, that problem.
Mhm,
So yeah, so it's like multiple ways that you can get mural projects. I mean, and my
mhm.
biggest way now is probably word of mouth. And then they also have a thing called request for proposals, where
Okay.
different entities, they kind of like put a call out, and that's something you can literally like Google, art RFP, a mural RFP, and you can apply for the calls and get a project. So yeah, it's
Mhm.
and I'm constantly thinking of ways or just ideas. One day I was looking at the construction site, and you kind of see like they have those panels, aligned to kind of like block off the construction site. And
Right.
I'm like, okay, I need to talk to them about, getting some art on there. So
Mhm.
it's all about just being, creative, and especially like,
Creative.
when you heard the term starving artist.
Mhm.
So when I was like a really starving art, like that's when you get creative. People invent
Okay.
stuff like when they don't have nothing or they need something. So
And there's a really high need that
mhm,
that extra neurological process happens, and
mhm,
that spiritual process happens is it pushed forward out of a need. I
yeah,
work with special needs children,
okay,
and I'm a speech pathologist, and we have many children that are nonverbal,
yeah,
and we used something called a core boards, and
mhm,
these are some common pictures of words that we might use in just a basic conversation. So
yeah,
want,
nice.
see, go, yes, no, those kinds of words. And because of the cognitive deficits, sometimes it's difficult for them to point to the pictures. But if it's something that they really want, they'll go right to that picture. Like if it's time to eat, that's just
Yeah,
that's a good example. It's time to eat. Are you ready? Are you ready for lunch? Yes. Go right
yeah,
to the yes
yeah,
and touch it. Where you ask them other types of yes questions, you gotta work with them. You gotta give them time. You gotta show them. But when there's really a need, something kicks in and they're able to go right there.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. What you're
yeah.
saying. So, but that's wonderful. And so you never thought that you were gonna it wasn't like you always wanted to be an artist or you always drew. Was it like that for you?
I would say in the either for like fifth or sixth grade, I was like artist of the month. That's when I remember kind of like getting recognition and it being like something that I like to do. So I did always want to be an artist. I didn't necessarily know like what type of artist or like how I was gonna like even going to art school. I didn't know like how I was gonna like make money being an
Hmm.
artist.
But you
I
knew it
always
was something that you had a passion for.
yeah, yeah,
Say that.
yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. And so people have different definitions of art. What would be your definition of art?
My definition, I would say art is maybe like a tangible way to express your creativity.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would call art. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And you have some beautiful pieces behind you. You want to tell us about those and the inspiration behind those? I'm looking at two pieces here.
Um, yeah, I can, brief like this one over here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is like a series. I did a series that was kind of based on quilts. Just because like there's like a long tradition of quilts in the Black culture, and so this one is called the Comforter. It's pretty simple, but yet I feel like it's deep at the same time. She's the comforter is keeping her warm because there's like a broken window in the background. but at the same time, the window is kind of like a symbol of like the trauma, the pain,
Mm-hmm.
you know, especially for women, like the safety that that she doesn't have. So but the comforter is a symbol of God, surrounding her.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And you are doing some work around missing women. From what I read, and when the information I read about you,
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
that correct? You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Um, yeah. Me and my wife, we started an organization called the Still Searching Project.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and pretty much like, okay, I have a aunt. She was murdered in the '80s, and there was like an old, sometimes like the news will kind of like go back into an old case. So I was watching, a news, a video that the news had did, and the killer was never found. In my aunt's case, actually my aunt and my two female cousins. So then, I was sitting up with my wife and we were kind of talking, and I was thinking like, okay, what's something like creatively, like as an artist, that I can do to kind of just like shift this whole thing. And I started, at the time I was like, I looked at that, but then I started looking at different videos, looking up just different crimes and seeing statistics about Chicago, seeing that there were like that there's like probably a couple serial killers. In the last 20 years, there's like over 50 women have been murdered, like on the south and west sides. Then I saw, around the same time, you had like the Kanika Jenkins thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw that there were like a number of women and children also missing. And that was the thing, like I never knew that, and I always consider myself like a person who kind of like knows, different information.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna call it, I think the definition of woke changed, but back then that's what we called it. But and I'm like a conspiracy theorist too, but
Okay.
that's another,
Okay.
another
Yeah, I think I kind of roll with you on that one.
yeah. But but no, I just saw like all those different things, and the idea just came like, okay, I can kind of like, since I didn't know about the number of women missing,
Yes.
I knew that okay, it's probably a lot of people who don't know this information because
Yes.
you like hardly hear it on the news. Um, and then, of course, you had like the whole like Gabby Petito thing, and it was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, you hear about like the white girl that went missing, but like you don't really hear about like Kiara Coles, like the pregnant postal worker who went missing. And that's
Right.
yeah, so that's the portrait I did first.
Okay.
Um, and then when I did it, I put it out on Facebook, and it got a really good reception. Like her parents, they inboxed me, and it got a lot of engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then from then, I kept doing portraits. We did our first mural that was funded by Chicago Public Art Group, and we've been able to get like a lot of press from like all the major news stations, all the newspapers, and any press that we get for Still Searching. For me, that's press that we're getting, that if people are learning more information and raising awareness about missing women, whether it be on one side about that particular individual who's
Mm-hmm.
missing, but at the same time, just so women know that, hey, you have to like, keep yourself safe, in certain situations, or you just have to be aware and things like that because, they're coming up missing.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think it's been a real good thing. We're, working on getting more grants and everything um, to expand. And at this time, and it, like last year, my wife made a short film, you know,
Mm-hmm.
missing woman Joanna Wright. So we're doing different things, and
Right.
I have about, I think, 29 or 30 portraits now. So
Okay. And how can people see those? Are they
um,
in galleries, or are they online, or
I do like different shows or kind of
the
like
show?
pop up to things.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, they're just like at my studio. You can see a lot of them online at
Mm-hmm.
stillsearchingproject.com.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And I know, as I was reading your uh, bio and your synopsis of the work that you're doing, and you were saying how you wanted to use your art to change the world. And this just shows how impactful artwork is, that you put a piece like this out, because it's definitely catching my attention, um, and causing me to feel a certain way as I'm watching it. And then you bring people together and they begin to have
Mhm.
conversation and dialogue, and from
Yeah.
there creates a change in consciousness.
Mhm.
And where your mind is where you're going. And so it does have it. Art has such a wonderful impact. And I think that's a very beautiful piece.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks.
So, like, are your pieces for sale? Pieces like that for sale, or they're just up for being in the gallery right now?
I mean, my still searching paintings. That well, actually, I mean, everything's for sale. I'm not one of the artists
Mhm.
to say like, hey, I'm saving that. No, I
Okay.
mean everything has a
Okay.
everything got a price on. Like, hey, oh, you like this shirt? No, I'm playing.
Hmm.
But but I mean, I do keep most of the, and this is not particularly like a still searching portrait because that's not a specific woman. But
Hmm.
even the still searching portraits, when I do sell those, I've sold like a few of them, but a lot of them I keep just because I do constantly like display them at different places and things. But
Okay.
when we do sell one, we use that income. It goes in to help do another mural of a missing woman, and we'll have like a community paint day where like the family of the missing will come out. We try to get the media out, the community, friends, and everybody will get to help paint on the mural, and then
Okay.
me and my assistants will finish up the mural, and we
Hmm.
always like put the information of who you can contact if you have anything or know anything. So,
Okay. That's beautiful. That's
yeah.
beautiful. And that is a beautiful piece.
Mhm.
And that is a very important subject matter, is the women and young girls and even young boys, that are missing in our
Yeah.
community. And a lot of these people, they're out here and we don't know where they are. And that's very sad. That's very scary, and it's something that we should definitely give attention and concern to. So, thank you for doing that work.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So you have another piece there on the side of you. Uh, okay. So you want to tell
Yeah.
us about that one?
So this one is actually like a self-portrait. And it was based on I came out with the album a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it was called Life App, short for Life Application. So
Okay.
what this image portrays is, it's like it's kind of showing that, life, you see that like big maze in the back, kind of like an obstacle course or a maze,
Mm-hmm.
like a symbol of, what life is or like the obstacles. But what it's really saying is that we're born with like all the tools to be able to, you know, defeat the obstacles or to be successful
That's right.
and things like that. So, everything like he or me, he has all the tools already, but
Mm-hmm.
it's, being able to tap into those tools,
Mm-hmm.
to be successful. So,
Right.
and that's what life application is about.
That's beautiful. And that's where guidance comes in. Guidance from your family, guidance from elders, to help people recognize that you do come here with everything that you need. You
Yeah.
know, and I think a lot of times, with some of our systems that we have that people have to go through, whether it's an educational system, a religious system, or some other cultural type of system, a lot of things get, a lot of those abilities get snuffed out, and they are not developed like
Hmm.
they could be. And that's the other thing that's so beautiful about art. I remember my art class in grammar school. Our teacher name was Mr. BJ, and it was a loud class, and people were just doing, but it was a class you were able to go in and express yourself and spread yourself and just tap into many of those different abilities that you have, because we do have more abilities than we utilize out here. And I think also too often we look outside of ourselves for somebody else to tell us what to do and how to do it. And
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of times we have to, like, to attain the level, we want to get to. It's not always like easy
mm-hmm,
work, but it's like, I'll say it's like it's satisfying, but that don't mean it's easy.
mm-hmm, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I look at the influence, how art influences our lives in so many ways, where we dress, where we talk, the different styles of what clothing is out here now, even the whole hip hop culture. And you might be able to speak to that, um, probably definitely articulate some information about that more than I do, more than myself, because I didn't grow up listening to hip hop music. But the hip hop generation has definitely had an impact on the culture, and the way people dress, the way they talk, the way people are seeing each other, relationships, health, what people are aspiring to be. It's had a huge impact.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's hip hop is kind of based on like that whole creativity. It's all art too.
Mm-hmm.
Even when it started, the DJing, the rapping, the break dancing, the graffiti,
Mm-hmm.
all those are all, arts. So,
Mm-hmm.
even now, about like the fashion and things like that, that's still art. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely think like black people are kind of like creative, people. Yeah.
Yes, we are. I did an exhibit for Black History Month at my school on Soul Train. Did you ever see Soul Train?
Yeah, yeah. I've seen it before.
Okay, yeah. Okay, Don Cornelius came up with Soul Train, um, and George Johnson and the Afro Sheen Products funded it. So it was black owned, produced, sponsored and sponsored. And at the time they had American Bandstand, and a lot of black people, at, up until the civil rights movement hit, black people weren't able to go and dance on American Bandstand. They could go in the studio, but they couldn't be seen on TV dancing with young whites. And so when they brought Soul Train out, and black people came out with the naturals, or all, I mean, the styles of dress, the dancing, the music, it brought black culture to the world.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so many people in it, even of other ethnic backgrounds, remember Soul Train and the Soul Train line dancing and all the people that had been on Soul Train. And so it was a wonderful opportunity and experience to bring this to our children. Uh,
Yeah.
and it was a part of our culture and the creativity of our people. We even talked about the way they dressed back then, with
Yeah.
platform shoes and, you know,
Bell
the mini skirts, bell bottoms, go-go boots. and the artists were capturing just capturing all of this and
Yeah.
giving and taking a spin with it. So that's what you guys do, and you're very important uh, to our communities. What do you think? What role do you think art can play in terms of politics?
I mean, I think art can really inform, from politics to everything else because, um, as I would say, just for the most part, we're like a visual, people.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's whether it's like TikTok, you like flipping until you like see something that's like interesting, or
Mm-hmm.
you hear something which is kind of like music. But yeah, so artists are definitely like at the forefront of, I would say, change, like,
Okay.
politics and anything, because even when you look at like, history, like without the artist, like a lot of history is even lacking, because some
Yes.
things we don't even fully like. I always kind of joke with my daughters like, okay, do we really know these certain things happen? Like an artist painted it, but you know we don't know
Mm-hmm.
if the artist was painting what he wanted to paint, or was he painting
Right.
what actually was.
Right.
So yeah, art definitely. That's why they have the phrase like, they say, does art dictate life or does life dictate art? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so with art you can definitely make a statement. I mean, I remember in like, even in college we was making like free Mamiya posters and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. Because I noticed you've been in a lot of competitions, you've had a lot of awards, and you have worked with a lot of different organizations and I would say even corporations, because you was in a national competition with the NAACP, the Afro-Academic, Cultural, Technological, and Scientific Olympics.
Yeah, yeah.
So you were involved in that with your artwork.
Yeah, and that was
So,
so in high school, and they actually still have it. Um, but yes, event sponsored by the NAACP, Afro Cultural. They kind of, the short name is like AXO. So
hmm
Afro Cultural Technical Science. It's like a Olympics of the mind for like for Black youth. So
hmm
in high school, we had like the local competition where you kind of have an art show and get judged, and then you have the winners from that. And it's not only art, they had like music, they had oratory, they had
okay,
science. Um, yeah, they have like a bunch of different categories. But I was in the art, of course. So I won
okay,
the local, and then I went to the nationals.
hmm
Like 3 years, I went to the nationals, and that was, one year it was in Chicago. Actually, my last year of high school in 1996. Yeah, it was in Chicago. So it was a good experience because I got to, kind of come out
hmm
here and see what it was like before I came to college. I decided to come
hmm
to college out here. But
hmm
yeah, that's like a really good, like I met, you know, like friends and people back then. Like some of my best friends are like people I met at AXO.
okay. All right. And then there was the Congressional art competition. So this was something that Was this from through Congress?
Yeah, yeah, and that was in high school too, and that was um, a similar kind of thing. I had like a real good art teacher in high school,
Mm-hmm.
so he kind of kept me abreast of like all the different like opportunities. And yeah, and it was the same thing. Like I won for my for the district, for my congressional district, and then they flew us out. They flew me and my mom out to DC. And
Mm-hmm.
I had a painting that it hung in Congress for a year, so that was super
Okay.
cool. And then we went out there. We met with our congressmen, and they had a few events and everything. So yeah, that
Mm.
was a real good opportunity. And like I said, especially in my youth, I think me just being able to travel and get different experiences really.
So is this where all that traveling was through your art? Because I
Um,
know at the beginning
not
you were talking
well,
about going a lot of places, places that you moved to.
yeah.
So was that through
Well,
your artwork?
those are because my stepfather was in the Air Force. So
Ah, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
so we
Mm-hmm.
moved around a lot because of that. I think I went to like maybe like 9 different elementary schools or something like that.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Okay. So you got to move around. And
yeah,
so you had some formal training. You went to Harvard Career Discovery Program. You went to the School of Art Institute in Chicago.
yeah.
And what is this? Skowhegan,
No,
Skowhegan,
Skowhegan.
Skowhegan,
Yeah,
School
Skowhegan.
of Painting and Sculpture, Museum of Contemporary Art. So you've gotten a lot of formal training under your belt. How do you feel that's impacted your
Mhm.
career, your performance at this stage in the game?
Yeah, I would say, and I'm definitely grateful for all the formal training, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, part of it kind of like equates to like I got a lot of time to practice, and doing art, is more about you really have to have like somebody to kind of bounce your ideas off of and critique you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so now, like Harvard Career Discovery Program, I went there. I was doing architecture. That's when I kind of learned that I liked, just straight kind of drawing and painting more than
Mm-hmm.
like all the math stuff. So that was really good for that. Um, in the art institute, yeah, I got to work on a lot of art. I think the biggest thing is like kind of the connections and just being able to, tell people like, when I can tell people I went to the art institute, to me
Mm-hmm.
that's like a flex, Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I just went to the art. Yeah. And
Okay.
I did learn there, but it was
Mm-hmm.
more like I just like worked I worked on what I did. It's kind of like if if you go to the art institute and don't know what you want to do, you may play around and be there for like
Doing
6, 7 years or something.
it.
That's just
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So and actually the residency what is Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture,
Okay.
that I would say I actually had like a breakthrough there because that was like I think it was a 9 week sculpture. Skowhegan is like a city in Maine,
Mm-hmm.
so we stayed in a little we kind of stayed in like a cabin, and then we had our own personal art studio. It was like a 10 by 10 by 10 foot space.
Mm-hmm.
So every day, I didn't. It was like I didn't have nothing else to do for those 9 weeks, but just like work on paintings. And then they
Wow.
brought artists in.
Okay.
So the good thing, like it was this artist, Whitfield Lavelle, this artist, um, ooh, Kara. I want to say Kara Winter, but I think that's wrong. But um, and then Allison Czar. It was like some really good artists came in, and they gave me like some really good critiques, which I had
Mm-hmm.
never really had before. You
Mm-hmm.
know, was able to really think about things. um, yeah, so I think my art, you know, that really helped me step my art, you know, up. Just having that
Mm-hmm.
experience, and I did like 14 new paintings while I was there on those 9 weeks. So.
Wow.
Mhm.
And then it seems like your connections and your experiences gave you um, an opportunity to see what all you could actually do with this, with this
Yeah,
skill, with this work and this passion. A lot of people want to draw and they draw, but they don't really know how to. It's almost like a musician or an actress or actor that gets a talent agent who knows where to take you and how to what all the different things that you needed to do. But it sounds like you had some good educational experiences. You had some good teachers that exposed you to some situations that help you to understand what all you could do with artwork. And it's my understanding you have like 400 public art projects,
yeah, yeah.
and you've
So,
worked with Blue Cross Blue Shield, Showtime, Gatorade. What did you do for Gatorade?
I mean, it was a mural. It was
Mural.
actually like in combination. We did like a live painting at Comiskey Park, and
Okay.
it was a mural. It was an organization. I think it's called Sport for Good. So it was
Mm-hmm.
like part of a sports initiative. So we like did the mural in 2 days at Comiskey, and then one of the Cubs, I can't think of his name right now, but he came, and then some other youth came and just spoke about, you know, just like sports being a positive thing
Mm-hmm.
for youth. Yeah,
Okay. And then there was the American Red Cross. What happened there?
yeah. That last year I got the opportunity to was that last year? No, actually end of 2022. Um, the end of 2023 because yeah, we just passed 24. But there's a have you heard of it's called the mural wall? Have you heard of that before? It's like on the Kennedy Expressway. And if you ever remember, like it used to be this big mural and they used to like change Rodman's hair color at this
Yes.
location, if you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about.
Yes.
And then they started,
Is
you
that the
know,
one
now,
where is that the one where Michael Jordan's they had Michael Jordan up there for a good minute?
yeah, I think they had Michael Jordan. They had some different things, but kind of fast forwarded, they changed it up, and now every maybe like 6 weeks, it'll like represent. They create art to represent a different organization. So,
Okay.
you know, I was chosen by the American Red Cross to, you know, do a design for the mural wall, and it's like, you know, it's maybe like 120 feet long on one side and like 80 feet long on the other side. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's like thousands of people ride by it every day. So, yeah, it was a really good opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I did that design for them. And then when they had like their annual fundraiser, they used all of the art for their, you know, that was like the art that they used on all of their like material and everything.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we need more of those on the south side and the west side. I think
Yeah,
we
yeah,
need
it's
to go.
definitely like some locations that would be really good for that. But and I
Mm-hmm.
think Wintrust funds that like that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that would definitely be really cool.
Yep. It would make our
Yeah.
neighborhoods look better, number
Mhm.
one. And number two, it would definitely bring up some consciousness and some discussion uh, about
Mhm.
what's going on, what should people feel should be going on, and what's not going on in our communities here in Chicago. Because me personally, when you mentioned this mural down on the Kennedy, when I look around, approach that Circle Exchange there, and I'm looking north and I'm looking east, I see all these tall buildings, you know, and then you get all of this nice advertisement going on with these nice murals up. But then when I look west and I look south, I don't see anything,
Mhm.
you know. First of all, the skyscrapers are not there.
Yeah.
Um, but just because the skyscrapers are not there doesn't mean that the communities couldn't be saturated
Mhm.
with just more art and more murals, you know, in our communities. And I know there's a lot of young people that would love to just get involved with that.
Yeah, yeah. And certain neighborhoods kind of have more than others. Like like on the west side, Lawndale, definitely has a lot of arts over there.
Mhm.
And then on the south side, like Bronzeville, Chatham,
Mhm.
starting to do a lot of art.
Mhm.
Yeah, and Inglewood, they're starting to get a lot of art too. So
Okay.
yeah, and the city is definitely like putting more money into the arts.
Mhm.
Like I was saying, the last probably like since the pandemic,
Okay.
yeah, they've been definitely funding more art projects um, on the south and the west sides. So that's really good too.
Okay. Okay. And then there are films. You've gotten involved with using your artwork with some films.
Um, that the films are more like it's some films who well, some TV shows kind of sometimes they'll kind of use it as some of the backdrops. And some of the films are like a similar thing where they'll want to use it for kind of maybe shoot a scene in front of and things like that. So
Mhm.
yeah. Oh,
So
but
you,
no, okay, but you're talking about, I know what you're talking about though. You're talking about the Still Searching documentary,
yeah.
I think. Yeah. So it's a filmmaker, Latoya Flowers. She filmed me over the course of like 2 years when I was
Mhm.
first starting to do the still searching portraits. Um,
Mhm.
and that's like, that's being edited right now. But the film, yeah, it got funding from Hulu and from Still I Rise Films and Cartemplin Films.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. And you can
Okay.
see the trailer for the documentary on the website. There's a TEDx talk that um, you know that we did, and you can see it. Like halfway through the TEDx talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. You are having a very rich, I would say, experience with your artwork that you're able to take it into so many different places. And one of the things I know, um, Chicago Public Schools used to have one of the best educational programs in the country, and they had a full program, and it did include art, and it did include music, and when they took art and music out of the curriculum, what kind of impact do you think that had on our children and on our community?
I mean, I would say taking those out is definitely a big impact because I think a lot of times you get like access to things because you get like exposure to it. So without that
Mhm.
exposure, it's a lot of youth who won't even, maybe they're creative, but
Mhm.
kind of like when I had, and I was in college, but like when the artist came to my class and kind of showed, like that was the moment when I saw like, oh, this is like I didn't
Mhm.
know that was possible. So so a youth like form a youth not to have like a music class, and
Mm-hmm.
they're, maybe they can, naturally play an instrument, but they won't really get to, kind of take it to that next level just because they may not have the information. A lot of times it's not, I would say like having the information is the thing that kind of stops, a lot of people from being able to do and attain different things. Because it's like once then you can, kind of make decisions based on that.
You
So,
are you
yeah,
are absolutely right. And I mean, you're hitting it a very important point here because it's a field that you're interested in, but you don't know that you can do all of these different things with it, and that's just as bad as not even knowing about so many other careers out here. There are careers out here that people have that the average student or child in our community never even heard of it.
yeah, yeah, and
Never even heard of it. And then you have something, a skill. You're a great musician. You really have a talent for art, and you don't really know what you could do with this.
yeah. I mean, the bigger problem is like the educational system.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like it kind of teaches you to be like a robot. It teaches you to like learn how to like learn how to work a job for somebody, um,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to like teaching you how to think for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Right, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the conversation about your piece back there that you just did, that you have in the back, that demonstrates how we have the tools that we need. We come here with these tools that we need, but we got to learn, and somebody has to make you aware, help you become aware of what you can do with these tools.
yeah,
The
yeah,
extent that they can take you. It's like having these supernatural powers and not knowing what to do with them.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, and
Well,
yeah,
but as I listen to you, I would love to see more murals. I would love to see more art galleries in our community. What was it like when you had your first, and I'm sure you had it, your first solo exhibition?
my first one was actually really good because it was, if I remember correctly, it was called, I don't know, it was called like Fresh Out of High School or something. But it was
Uh-huh.
actually, I had an art show to help get money for college.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so yeah, I think I sold like I almost like sold out, and
Wow.
made a bunch of money to to help for college. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
definitely a good feeling.
Well, we're getting close to the top of the hour here, and I have two more things. I definitely want you to let people know, tell us your website, let people know how they can follow you and the work that you're doing. I would definitely want you to put that out there. And any words of wisdom that you can impart to any other inspiring artists, young artists out there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, for one, go to well, the website is my name, DamonLamarReed.com. DamonLamarReed.com. Social media is the same at Damon Lamar Reed. And that's TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Um, Also, I'm in about 2 weeks. I'm coming out with a book called "Create, Inspire, Uplift: 25 Years of Public Art Making." So you can see the pre-order link to that on my site.
Mm-hmm.
And next week, I'm gonna be exhibiting at it's called the Other Art Fair, and that's on the north side of Chicago. a really cool event. If you do follow me on social media,
Mm-hmm.
you can see information about that. I'll have like probably like 20, or more pieces on display at the
And
other
this
art
is
fair.
called the other art fair.
Yeah, it's called the other
Okay.
art fair. It's a really big fair. It'll have like over 7,000 people, come to it. It's at a real nice location. They have like a DJ, and yeah, it's actually like a 4-day event.
Okay.
So it's from next Thursday to next Sunday.
Okay.
So you can do that. Yeah, and then I would just say, if you have like a dream that you really believe in and that you want to do it, I lived with, no plan B. So I told myself, I believed that I was gonna make it. So I told myself I'm gonna make it, whether it gets hard, whether it gets rough.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do what I gotta do. Um, yeah, and figure it out. Being passionate, being persistent. Um, yeah, and just never quitting on my goals. So yeah,
Absolutely. Well, it's been a joy talking to you, and you are another jewel in our community that we definitely appreciate and want to uplift and support. And I want you to
thank you,
keep doing what you're doing.
thank you.
Okay. So, family, we're going to um, end our show tonight. I think this has been a very inspirational talk, and we want you to support uh, Damon Lamar Reed. We want you to follow him, and I think he's going to be able to do some greater things, even more greater things in our community. And most of all, support Black businesses. So thank you and have a good night.